Your life is slipping through your fingers, and you are acting as if you have an eternity to live. You watch the clock tick, you feel the days blur together, and at the end of every week, a quiet panic settles in your chest. The overwhelming sense that you are busy, constantly working, constantly moving, yet somehow completely stagnant. You feel exhausted, not because you are achieving great things, but because you are constantly reacting to a world that demands your attention, your energy, and your soul. You are not trapped by a lack of time. You are trapped because you never learned the brutal truth that Seneca discovered in the courts of Rome, surrounded by immense wealth, political madness, and ultimate betrayal. A truth he recorded in his private letters. A truth that will change the way you look at every single morning for the rest of your life. 2,000 years ago, Lucius Annaeus Seneca walked the marble floors of Rome. He was one of the wealthiest men in the empire, an advisor to emperors, a brilliant playwright, and a philosopher whose mind was sharper than any blade. He had everything the modern world tells you to chase: money, status, power, influence. Yet he lived under a constant, suffocating cloud of pressure. He served Nero, a tyrant whose unpredictability meant that any day could be Seneca's last. He faced public execution threats, exiled to a barren island, and the crushing weight of managing an empire's chaotic politics. Through all of this, Seneca looked around at his fellow citizens and noticed a fatal disease of the human condition. People were frantically busy, yet completely dead inside. They were saving their lives for a future that would never come. Seeing this, he sat down and wrote a masterpiece that has survived the rise and fall of civilizations. He called it On the Shortness of Life. It was not a gentle philosophical treatise. It was an emergency intervention for the human soul. Here is the fundamental mistake most people make when they think about their lives. They complain that nature has been stingy. They say our lifespan is too short, that the years granted to us fly by so fast that, except for a very few, life leaves us in the lurch just when we are getting ready to live. You have probably felt this yourself. You wake up, and suddenly it is dark. You start a year, and suddenly the winter coats are coming back out of the closet. You feel like a victim of time. But Seneca looked at this excuse and completely demolished it. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous estimate has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. Imagine a massive, multi-million-dollar fortune. If that fortune falls into the hands of a reckless spender, it is gone in a matter of months. But if a modest estate is given to a wise and disciplined guardian, it grows, it expands, and it lasts for generations. It is exactly the same with your time. Life is long, if you only knew how to use it. Think about where your time actually goes. If an accountant were to sit down with you and audit your past month, what would the ledger show? Seneca asks us to perform this brutal mental exercise. Review your life. Look at how much time was taken by a creditor, how much by a romantic partner, how much by a boss, how much by your arguments with people who do not matter. Look at how much time was spent running around your city doing meaningless errands, how much was spent on self-inflicted illnesses, how much was left completely unused. You will see that you are dying prematurely, long before your body actually stops functioning. We guard our money with ferocious intensity. If someone tries to steal your wallet, you will fight back. If someone walks onto your property, you call the police. But when it comes to your time, the one asset you can never get back, you let people walk right in and take whatever they want. You allow notifications, emails, trivial conversations, and toxic relationships to steal hours, days, and years of your existence. You are thrifty with your money, but when it comes to wasting time, you are a massive spendthrift. The tragedy deepens when you look at how people plan their futures. Seneca observed men in their 50s and 60s saying, "When I turn 60, I will retire to a life of leisure. At that age, I will dedicate my mind to philosophy and self-improvement." Seneca's response to this is pure fire. He asks, Are you not ashamed to reserve for yourself only the remnants of your life? To intend to begin a good mind only at an age when it is no longer useful for anything else? How late it is to begin to live just when you must cease to live. What a foolish forgetfulness of mortality to postpone wholesome plans to our 50th or 60th year, intending to start life from a point that very few people ever reach. Look at your own life. Are you saying to yourself, I will be happy when I get that promotion. I will start reading when the weekend comes. I will focus on my mental health once this project is finished. You are making a contract with a future that does not exist, while completely abandoning the only moment you actually possess, which is right now. To cure this chronic wasting of existence, Seneca developed a profound three-part architectural framework for the mind. He divided time into three distinct regions: the past, the present, and the future. The present is short. The future is doubtful. The past is certain. Most people live in a state of constant anxiety because they are entirely focused on the doubtful future, while actively running away from their past and completely ignoring their short present. The first pillar of Seneca's strategy is the conscious reclamation of the present. You must stop treating the current moment as a bridge to somewhere else. When you are drinking your morning coffee, you are often already in your office in your mind. When you are talking to your family, you are checking your phone, thinking about a problem. You are never actually where your body is. The mind that is always somewhere else is a mind that is fundamentally homeless. The second pillar is the fearless review of the past. Seneca noted that people who waste their time in endless business hate to look backward. Their past is full of regrets, missed opportunities, and unexamined errors. Because they are ashamed of how they spent their time, they prefer to keep their minds frantically looking forward, distracting themselves with new tasks, new goals, and new forms of entertainment. But the Stoic master does the opposite. The wise man willingly looks back. He reviews his past actions, not to punish himself, but to claim his history. The past is the only part of your life that is safe from the hands of fortune. It cannot be altered, it cannot be taken away, and it cannot be diminished. When you establish a daily practice of reviewing your actions, you turn your past into a fortress of wisdom rather than a graveyard of regret. The third pillar is the calculated disarmament of the future. The modern world conditions you to be a slave to hope and fear. You hope for success, you fear failure. You hope for a better tomorrow, you fear a worse one. Both of these emotions do exactly the same thing. They pull you out of the only place where you have actual power, which is the present. Seneca advises us to expect nothing from tomorrow, and by doing so, to master today. This does not mean you do not plan. It means you remove the emotional dependency on the outcome. If you wake up and decide that today is already a complete life in itself, you no longer need to beg tomorrow for fulfillment. You treat each day as an individual, self-contained lifetime. This philosophical architecture protected Seneca from the four great modern viruses of the mind. The first is the illusion of business. We live in a culture that worships the grind. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. We tell everyone how tired we are, how packed our calendar is, how many emails we have to answer. Seneca called these people the high-class unfortunates. He observed men who spent hours at the barber shop having their hair trimmed, men who spent days organizing their private art collections, men who were constantly running from one social obligation to another. He said they were not living. They were just occupied. Being busy is the easiest thing in the world. It allows you to avoid the terrifying work of looking into a mirror and asking who you actually are. True Stoic focus is not about doing more. It is about eliminating everything that does not contribute to the excellence of your character. The second virus is the poison of social comparison. Seneca lived in a world of extreme hierarchy, where men ruined their lives trying to climb the political ladder of Rome. Today, that ladder is digital, global, and open 24 hours a day. You open your phone and you are immediately hit with the curated, polished highlights of thousands of other lives. You see their wealth, their travel, their bodies, their success. Instantly, your present life feels small, inadequate, and boring. Seneca warned that the man who watches others loses track of himself. When you focus on what someone else is doing, you are effectively giving them your most valuable asset, your attention. You are letting a stranger rent space in your mind for free. The Stoic strategy is to turn the gaze inward. The only comparison that matters is between who you were yesterday and who you are today. The third virus is the paralysis of anxiety. We worry about our health, our finances, our status, and our safety. Seneca recognized that most of our suffering happens entirely within the boundaries of our own imagination. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. We create elaborate, terrifying scenarios about what might happen next week, next month, or next year. We play these horror movies in our minds over and over again, wasting the peaceful moments of our present day reacting to ghost stories. By practicing the absolute grounding of the mind in the current second, you realize that right now, in this exact breath, you are usually completely fine. You have the strength to handle this moment. And if you can handle this moment, you can handle any moment that follows it." The final virus is the despair of unexpected loss. When tragedy strikes, it shatters most people because they lived under the delusion that things would stay the same forever. They forget that everything they love is temporary. Seneca's most radical practice was the premeditation of evils. Every morning, he did not just plan for success, he explicitly imagined the worst-case scenarios. He imagined losing his wealth, being exiled, losing his friends, and facing his own death. This sounds dark, but the result is pure liberation. When you remind yourself that everything you hold is on loan from the universe, you stop taking it for granted. You hug your loved ones a little tighter. You appreciate your health a little deeper. And when loss eventually arrives, as it must for all of us, it does not destroy you. It meets a mind that has already anticipated its arrival. To operationalize this philosophy, Seneca practiced a rigorous evening accounting method that perfectly mirrors the morning ritual of Marcus Aurelius. Every night, when the lights were dimmed and his house had fallen silent, Seneca would cross-examine his entire day. He would ask himself 3 precise questions. What bad habit did I conquer today? What fault did I resist? In what way am I better? This was not an exercise in self-flagellation. It was a compassionate, honest, and objective analysis of his behavior. He did not hide from his mistakes. If he lost his temper in a meeting, he noted it. If he wasted 2 hours on a trivial matter, he wrote it down. By shining the light of awareness onto his errors, he ensured that his tomorrow would be sharper, more deliberate, and more alive than his today. You must realize that you do not have to live the way the modern world tells you to live. You do not have to be a slave to the notification bell, the corporate calendar, or the endless scroll of social validation. Your mind is your only true kingdom. If you do not build a fortress around it, the world will happily colonize it, strip it of its resources, and leave you empty at the end of your years. The secret of Seneca is not a complex intellectual theory. It is a daily, uncompromising decision to reclaim ownership of your time. It is the courage to say no to things that do not matter, so that you can say a profound yes to the things that do. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, the world will immediately try to steal your mind. The notifications will be waiting. The emails will be stacking up. The anxieties of the day will try to rush into your chest before your feet even touch the floor. In that critical moment, remember the Roman philosopher who had everything, yet realized that none of it mattered without internal sovereignty. Put down the phone. Step away from the noise. Take a deep, deliberate breath and look at the day before you. Remind yourself that this day is not a rehearsal. It is not a preparation for a real life that starts later. This is it. This is your lifetime happening right now. Guard it, cherish it, and refuse to let the chaos take it from you. As Seneca beautifully concluded, it is a small part of life we really live. Indeed, all the rest is not life but merely time.